Welcome to the podcast Dynamic Political Centrism, hosted by Alan Steinberg, produced by Dr. Yonatan Yoni Yaris the Doc. Our special guest, Alex Wilkes, Republican Consultant.
Good evening, and welcome to the voice of Dynamic Political Centrism. I am that voice, Alan Steinberg, and we have a special show tonight. We have one of the great stars, excuse me, we have one of the great young stars of political consulting and political strategists with us. We have with us tonight Alex Wilkes, I should say. She was Alex Smith, but then she married a wonderful young man, and now she's Alex Wilkes. So Alex, and now she's also a noted outstanding mother as well. And she still finds time to do a show like this. So Alex, we're delighted to have you on.
Thank you so much. And rest assured, I am in my basement, so all children sounds should be muted, at least for this time.
Well, no, we like children. I mean, we're not an anti-children site. We have family values on our site. So if you ever wanted to appear and bring your kids on, we welcome that. I mean, I'm a grandfather of a granddaughter age 10 going on 30, already wanting to shop at Sephora in Manhattan for various cosmetics. So I understand the aspirations of young people too.
My daughter has already been featured on like several pieces of political mail, so I feel like this is she's earning her keep.
Well, we're wide open to that. Okay, I'd like to start off tonight by letting our viewers know about Alex Wilkes and the already remarkable record of accomplishment that she has had as a political consultant. First of all, Alex, let our viewers know what your role is in the present campaign and the scope of that role.
Sure. So ever since I came to New Jersey, I like to say I married into New Jersey. I hung out a shingle for political consulting. It was something I had done after about 10 years in Washington, D.C. in a variety of roles. So this was just before COVID. This was just before I became a mom. So the timing really lined up. And ever since that time, I have consulted on a number of races, including Jack Ciattarelli's 2021 race, a number of congressional races here in the Garden State, but also doing national work as well from my time in DC and the people that I met there. So my role this cycle is principally focused more on our assembly races and some of the efforts there. But at this point, it all just sort of feels like one big push. So it's all hands on deck, no matter who you are, where you are.
Well, this election is one big push. It is, in my view, it is a dirty campaign that the Cheryl people are running. They are trying to take an absolute, what we call in Hebrew, an Ohev Yisrael, a lover of the Jewish people, as you are from your work with AIPAC. They're trying to twist. They have a great art of twisting their scandals around and projecting it onto somebody else. I think that that's their main qualification for public office, which tells you how much trouble and how difficult our national problems are. But, I have respected every single candidate for governor of both parties. Back when I was active in Republican gubernatorial races, I was opposed to Jim Florio, but never an enemy. And he became one of my best friends in life. And I go along with all the candidates of both sides. This is one candidate that I have nothing but contempt for. And I want our listeners and viewers to know that, because this is vile. And to have implied that Jack Ciattarelli, who is as decent an individual, that he was a mass murderer, is sick. So I do not hesitate to say that on my show. And I'm delighted that I have the opportunity to say that. But tell us, you were also with that PAC, America Rising. Tell us a little about that. That became a very noteworthy and positive PAC.
Yeah, sure. So after my time at the College Republican National Committee, where I had served 2 terms as national chairwoman, I was the first female elected in the organization's 125-year history. So it was an exciting time to be a young Republican in Washington, and never at a loss for things to do. I had joined America Rising, which is an opposition research firm, and by the way, this is the same on both sides. There's a counterpart, American Bridge,
Oh,
that
I'm
does
familiar with that site.
yeah, that does the tracking and and the research on candidates. Jack has a tracker. I was recently planning a rally in Bergenfield, and like sure enough, like he was like one of the first guys there standing in the corner. But you know what, Jack does exactly what would infuriate us like on our side, which is like he sort of like says like, ah, hey, there's our tracker, good to see you, you know.
Oh, he's an ultimate open book.
Yeah,
He is
you know,
more of an open book than any candidate I've ever seen, so
yeah, I mean, look, he has nothing to hide. I think that Jack's laid
he
it out
doesn't.
all out on the field. He did in 2021. He really showed people you know, what his heart was, especially in those final weeks of the campaign. And keep in mind, during that time, and I was working for the state party at that time, I mean, the public polling showed us down 11 points. And so for us still to have faith at that point, that like there has to be something here that the public pollsters are missing, that something's not being picked up on. And then for him to come within striking distance of Phil Murphy and to bring along with him so many legislative races, I mean, and municipal races as well, like it's, you know, it was truly but it was truly an extraordinary time. But what you really saw from him, I think, in those last couple of months was like that fire. It was just like everywhere he went, it was, you know, it was the crowds, it was the excitement that this was, you know, catching on. And I think that unfortunately some of those polls really acted as vote suppressors in some ways. I mean, because, you know, why go out on election day if you think that your guy's down 11 points? And we hadn't really at that point familiarized ourselves as much with early voting. Republicans were still a little bit more resistant to it. It was a newer concept here in New Jersey. Probably the infrastructure hasn't quite caught up with where it needs to be in terms of servicing the number of people who want to come out and early vote. So look, and my point is that Jack is who he is. Like it's who he's always been, and you get the same Jack at every stop. You get the same Jack no matter what editorial board you're in front of, or you know, you're a guy at a gas station. Doesn't matter.
You have
Like
made
this.
a very significant point. Actually, two of them. But the first significant point is how the polls didn't really show how he was catching on. I've got a sense of why that is. And if you disagree, please correct me, because you're the expert. I'm not on to listen to myself. I'm not short of ego, but I'm not on to listen to myself. But here's the first point I have. He has struck me, even at times when I've disagreed with him, he is a person of total authenticity. And I think in New Jersey, that goes down big time because, I love the fact I share something with him. I'm a grandson of Jewish immigrants from Eastern Europe, and he is a son of Italian immigrants. And he doesn't hide that. For example, if you go to his wiki page, it doesn't say Jack Citarelli. It says something like Jacobo Citarelli. I love that. I love that because I have a Hebrew name I use. My producer, Yonatan Yari, same thing. He is a man of authenticity in a world of phonies. And I don't know, what do you think of that? I think that's a big assist for him.
I mean, look, we have seen this trend in politics now for quite some time. You know, mirroring the populist current that is running through the country on both
Right.
sides of the aisle. People have really started to reject that poll tested, focus grouped, you know, like tight language that politicians were so used to delivering over and over and over again to people. Um, and so when a person like Donald Trump came onto the scene and just
Mm-hmm.
started like literally just, I mean, just speaking, saying things that had never been said, saying things in a way that they hadn't been said. I mean, it just drew a lot of attention, and in a similar way on the other side of the aisle, you really saw that with Bernie Sanders. I mean, I tend to think he's
That's
a little
true.
bit of a fraud with the you know you know, he's pretty rich for a socialist.
That is the biggest understatement since Ted Williams said he thought he could hit.
Yeah, so
But
um you know, but look at the same deal. The same deal. Bernie Sanders has been saying the same things for the last like 40 or 50 years. If you go back on tape, like to random interviews that like Donald Trump would give with 2020 or whatever at Trump Tower, he's been saying the same thing, right? Like
That's
he'd
true.
be on Oprah talking about like some of this stuff back in 1995. I mean, so it's just like people were looking for someone who didn't hide who they were. And I actually like I think one of my favorite examples of this, because I mean, you have to understand that being in DC at that time, I saw all of this Republican field kind of implode in real time, which was like unbelievable as like someone in my 20s new, sort of like new to the political scene in DC to watch. I mean, like over a dozen highly qualified candidates, like some of our party's best and brightest, I mean, just get savaged within a matter of months. But like one of my favorite sort of ways that this, to have seen this now in retrospect was during the Iowa State Fair. I think that's like when all the candidates put on their like plaid shirts and their jeans and their cowboy boots and they walk around even if they feel really uncomfortable in that kind of wear. Donald Trump like landed on the field in the Trump helicopter. He's there in the suit. Like he's like I don't think the guy was pretending to be anybody else but a guy from Queens.
Definitely from Queens,
of a
where the Mets are.
Yes. In Iowa, and look, and like that is what like, and people. I remember there were commentators at the time like, "Oh my gosh, like how garish, like like he'll never connect with the voters there," and the voters loved it. Like, I mean, so there is this real drive for authenticity. Jack is that authentic character, and when you juxtapose that with Mikey Sherrill, who is just, I mean, this creature of Washington that I feel like I know so well from
She's
having
a white bread candidate.
yes, I mean like I have like I mean she looks like she is programmed to speak about whatever it is that she thinks is going to be politically expedient at the time. And if it's one side of the issue or the other, that's what she's going to take. She's going to like internalize those talking points. She's going to have the platitudes. I think one of the biggest things that I had noticed during the Democratic debates back in the spring was like she was up there talking like it was a Capitol Hill press conference, like kind of talking like a congresswoman, right? Like we're gonna fight and we're gonna do this, and like you're allowed to talk like that as a congressperson because there's 435 of you and nobody really cares what you have to say. Like nobody cares. And then like she would talk, and I feel like Steve Fulop, Steve Sweeney, and Ross Baraka would like look at each other and be like, okay, and anyway, back to New Jersey Transit. Like it was just like she just like didn't connect at all. Like she's just this creature of Washington, like I said, a person who has just like, really like fashioned this story in such a way that like no, I'm perfect for everything because of my biography and my background, and like look, it's all tailor-made, it's all perfect. When in fact I think that when she goes before voters, when she goes before reporters unscripted, it falls apart because she doesn't have that core driving set of principles that guides her. And I think that Jack
Well,
does.
I think that's why she's so far down in the enthusiasm in the polls.
Yeah.
The public wants to have enthusiasm about his or her candidate, but how can you feel enthusiastic about someone who sounds like a tape recorder? You just can't feel it. I mean, like Bernie Sanders and Trump, they may say things that at times are off the ball, but the voters will feel that they are speaking with them. They
Yeah.
definitely feel this, and I think that that is a key. What you just mentioned. I want to ask you one thing. It's a side topic, but it's very important to both Yoni and myself. I was delighted to see that you got the AIPAC team player role. Tell us about that, because in my view, AIPAC is one of the most effective public affairs operations in American history. And as Jews, we're delighted by that because we didn't have a lobbying group like AIPAC during the Holocaust.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a decided factor in the extermination of the Jewish people in Europe, and the fact that the Roosevelt administration is something I remind the Democrats about all the time. Don't give me this garbage that you're the party of the Jews when you had a president like Roosevelt stood by and did nothing. He would not bomb the tracks going to Auschwitz. He would had a very strict policy against the admission of Jewish refugees. We didn't have an AIPAC then, but thank God we had an AIPAC when you were there. So tell us a little about that. That's important.
Yeah, and look, sadly, the state of our college campuses has really declined just in general and through no fault of AIPACs. In the last couple of years, certainly since I've been in college or since I was active in youth politics in DC, the honor that you're talking about was the Co-Ally of the Year award that I received in conjunction with my counterpart from the College Democrats of America. And the reason why we had gotten that award was because AIPAC, I mean, they've this. I mean, like the programming and the outreach that they have is just first class, like all around. Like they're like whether they're reaching out to Christian groups, the Black community. I mean, take any constituency. There's an AIPAC chapter. There's an AIPAC, contact or person in that particular place or in that particular group. And in our case, they were always very proud of the fact that they were one of the only organizations that brought college Democrats and college Republicans together. And every year what they would do is they would host a campus allies trip to Israel. So I had the privilege of going to Israel twice with AIPAC, which, I mean, it's just an incredible experience. I mean, to go to Israel itself is an incredible experience, but then to have AIPAC as a guide and to really take a peek behind the curtain and see a lot of the things that you don't see back here in the States and in the media. It was just a real privilege and of something that was very exciting, very illuminating, something that stayed with me really for the rest of my days. Like and I think that that's truly like when like watching I mean, well, so I'll finish that up by saying that like they provide
take your time.
They provide stellar outreach to every kind of constituency across the aisle, across religions. It doesn't matter. They're that's what they do best. And I think that at that particular conference, the policy conference, which they host every year, which is
I went about 4 or 5 times to that. Yes.
Yeah, it's incredible. I like to be in the DC Convention Center and like it's like first of all, it's like the security is crazy. You have the option of going to like one of 10 events like every hour.
Well, they had good food there too. That was the other
thing. They do. And I had the opportunity to watch the Prime Minister speak. The year is escaping me now. You'll have to forgive me as the mom of two.
No, I have a pretty good idea that my son was in Israel the whole year of the Intifada in 2001. I was very proud that he stayed the whole year. A lot of the other kids came home because of security fears. He said, "No, I'm going to stand here with Israel," and I was very, very. I could not have been prouder. And someday you're going to have a reason to be proud of your children because they will have your attitude on the importance of Jewish-Christian relations. And I know that Jewish kids who are playing with the children of Alex, what's her husband's name?
Charlie.
Charlie. the ANC kids, that they are going to be good allies of the Jewish community. I know that because I know the way you are as a parent and the warmth and the communication. Some night we'll have your husband on. He can talk about what it's like to be married to a full-time cooperative.
He can speak all day about commercial real estate. He also
that's lucrative. I mean,
he's so funny enough. We met on a campaign trip in Wildwood, New Jersey, LD1, in 2007. We didn't date for 11 years, but then we reconnected at a friend's wedding, and that's
a beautiful story.
But yeah, so like when people ask me how I met my husband, I'm like door knocking.
Well, you mentioned the consulting world. My son served briefly as a consultant. Dan Hazelwood, and his wife was working under Michael Steele for a while when he was a chair. Now he ran he was working for a candidate named George Geekus. I mean, this guy fell asleep half the time. And the role of the Republican State Committee of Pennsylvania was basically keeping him awake, But my son had some really effective negative ads on there. But he decided to go full-time into he's in high technology public relations now, and he's working as chief operating officer for one of the top firms in that regard in New York. But I always told him, I said, I love what you do, but I wish you could do political consulting on the side. Because I said, you have the talent for it, and you have the talent for it. But it just, I think nowadays, it's a career where you really have to work hard. Not everybody is an Alex Wilkes, not everybody, and not everybody is successful at it. So I'll leave you with one last thing on Israel before we go on to the rest. What you've done with the Jewish Christian Alliance, I really saw it full blown when I've been to Israel 18 times. And one of the trips I was in Israel was at the height of a lot of the disturbance. And so one night I was at the Inbal Hotel. They used to call it the Larome Hotel. And I was there, and I noticed there weren't that many Jews there. And I started walking around the hotel on Shabbat night. It was all evangelicals. Yeah. And I said, thank God for them. They're keeping alive our commercial center. But I'll never forget it. So I ended up schmoozing with these people. And I was delighted. I mean, they were better for Israel than a lot of my fellow Jews are. So I give you folks credit for that.
You don't want to be running late and have to catch the Shabbat elevator in Tel Aviv.
Oh, yeah. Well, they had a good Shabbat elevator, too, there. They had that as well.
I'll say this just as like a final thought on Israel. On my last trip there, they took us as close as we could safely get to the Gaza Strip at the time, and this is far before October 7th.
I was there on the day of 9/11, so I know where you're talking about. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, it's just very like where we could see it in the distance, and you're looking at you're looking at this fragile. I mean, just you're looking at a place that is so vulnerable. Right, you're looking at a place that is so fragile and so vulnerable, and when like everyone else, when the attacks happened, like I'll just never forget seeing that image in my mind of the desert where the music festival was, and knowing how close it was, and like how how fragile the peace had always really, or kind of been there. And then for 2 weeks after, when behind enemy lines there, I mean, it just shocked me. Like I remember noting that with Mikey, because I knew she wanted to run for governor, and I was like, my God, like that is just like I don't know how you came to that conclusion, but it was just one of the things that had struck me most on our last trip there, was just. And
she actually was calling for a cessation of the fighting at that point when Jews had just been killed wholesale. I mean, that's unbelievable.
Yep. I mean, it was just like you couldn't even believe your ears. It felt so politically motivated. It didn't feel like it was rooted. Like, look, there were people who were calling for a ceasefire who like really believe like in that, and not that I respect them for it, but like it is what they believe. Whereas with Mikey, it just felt like a way that she could tack to the left and say that she was sort of like speaking to some of those more liberal voters that ultimately ended up coming out for Mayor Baraka, and I think dividing the Democratic primary a little bit more than she would like to admit.
Well, no, I'll tell you, I can see through her what her motivation is. The Democratic Party, and I'm going to be doing a series of articles on this. At one time, it was the party. My mother was a Hadassah president, God rest her soul, and my grandmother was active in Hadassah. And they used to go to these conventions, and Eleanor Roosevelt was a great backer of Israel and the Jewish community. In fact, so much so that when my mother would get the monthly Hadassah magazine, I thought Eleanor Roosevelt was Jewish, But that was the great days of the Jewish Democratic Party coalition. It was a great thing. That doesn't exist anymore. You had a person like Jake Sullivan a few weeks ago saying that he now could back a withdrawal of armed assistance to Israel. I mean, that's horrific. The signal that sends out, and I have to tell you something. My readers and followers know that I've had some pretty harsh criticisms of Donald Trump along the way, but I owe him. I owe him. I owe what they say in Hebrew as hakarat hatov. You have to appreciate the good. And he has saved the existence of that state of Israel. So I can be critical, but I've really become very muted that way because no president had the courage to do what he's done. I can't take that away from him. He does a lot of other stuff that drives me crazy, because I want us to win this time. I always want us to win, but I can't help but be grateful to him for that.
And I think a lot of people are. I mean, he has been a president who has said all along, again, going back to those interviews in, like years and years ago, that he's for peace. And that's a really easy thing to say. I think it's a much harder thing to affect. And I think that, he has been, look, he's been tough on the Israeli government when he feels like, when he feels like
he did it as a loving tough.
It's tough love, but he's not afraid to, to sort of, I won't repeat the language he used.
Well, this is a family show, but we can always, manipulate that. We won't tell Charlie.
No. I mean, it was as he was approaching Marine One, and like something had happened, and he remarked that he didn't know what they were doing, but much more colorfully. I think he's been tough on it. Look, like he's like, he presents himself as the negotiator. He's like, I want to get this done. I want the deal done. Like, I want it done now. Like, it doesn't matter if he's talking about like cement contracts in Queens, or if he's talking about like, Middle East peace. Like, he's like, I want this done. Like, I don't, it's pointless. It's stupid. Like, it's a pointless, a waste of humanity, to engage in this, whether you're talking about Ukraine or you're talking about, you're talking about Gaza and you're talking about Israel. Like, it is just it is a waste of human life, of precious human life. And there's no, when you can have a president who has the political will, to bring about that peace.
Well, I have said it like this. I feel that, for years, I followed the conventional wisdom of the Middle East, the two-state solution, had to really ingratiate yourself with the Palestinian Arabs, even when you had Hamas, which was a genocidal organization. And so I said to myself, when I saw the way Trump operated, I said, oh, wow, he's going against everything I've learned. Well, maybe he was right and everybody else was wrong. He's not afraid to go against the conventional wisdom. Now, my listeners who have followed me, a lot of them are furious at me because I'm giving them credit. Well, I'm not going to withhold that credit. I lost a quarter of my extended family in Poland. Of course, I'm going to give him credit. What do you think I am, a yo-yo? I mean, forget it. I'm going to do that. But I'm delighted. It's a delight to have a person of your competency on, but also the fact that you have played this role with Israel. But let's go on to talk about this campaign. Specific, I know the candidates all have consultants. What is your role in terms of how you fit into the whole panoply and the various consultants? Because you also have to be a great negotiator because they're all going to have their opinions. They're all going to tell you, you don't know anything about my district. And then you have to step in and keep them from making mistakes. I don't envy you.
Well, look, like I said, I'm helping some of the assembly efforts, both some of the outside and some of the, some of the direct campaigns. And I primarily function in the communications capacity usually. So shaping a message, determining, how something should be said, how we should be communicating about something. It's a little different when there's a statewide campaign going on at the same time. I mean, sure, you're going to have niche issues in certain communities that have to be addressed, but Jack is driving the message down the field, and it's our job to follow him, because I mean, the truth of the matter is that in many of these legislative districts, the legislative candidates are going to live and die with Jack. And if Jack does well, a lot of these candidates will do well. If he doesn't quite get there, it won't be as good of a night for Republicans. In 2021, it was like sort of a mixed bag because he ended up bringing a lot of these people across the finish line when he himself
eight seats, I think it was.
Yeah, and he said, I think I was the only one that didn't win that night.
Well, I told him he was unselfish. But let me ask you, a positive. I'm sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt. You were saying.
No, I just wanted to say I really credit Jack with every speech that he gives, and believe me, I've been to a lot of Jack speeches, small and large. Every single one, he says, it's not just about me. It's plus 13. And by
he's not kidding either.
He means an assembly majority. He means a governing majority. A legislative body that will finally play ball, right? That's not just sitting back and, waiting for the Democrats to dump a budget on our heads, like right before 4th of July weekend with a bunch of crap in it. A governing body that can actually get stuff done. And that's the kind of guy who he is. And I think that takes a lot of, political will and courage in this day and age to say, no, I don't just want it to be me. I want it to be others too. And I think that it dovetails nicely with some of the other commentary he offers about how he doesn't want a book afterwards. Write a book afterwards. He doesn't want a Senate seat. He doesn't want to be president. He will sit on the beach happily in Surf City, after all of this, if win, lose or draw. And like the fact that he doesn't have like some greater ambition that then would cause him to sort of like shelve some of the political capital you would need to pull some other people across the finish line. Like, I really admire that. I admire the consistency of that message. I mean, that's inspired a lot of campaigns. It's made it easier for campaigns to fundraise, to become more credible, because they've got the guy at the top of the ticket saying that they can win. And they can win with him. So,
let me give you a positive and negative aspect of the outlook as I see it. And if you disagree with me, I'll defer to you. I see a real positive developing in the 3rd and 4th district, from what I've been told. 2 South Jersey districts. The 3rd district I'm familiar with very much so because I started my career as a lawyer working for Marty Herman, who was a very able representative from the 3rd district. He lost, as he put it, in the Kane landslide of 1985, but Kane gave him a judgeship afterwards, so he was grateful for that. He was a great judge and a great assemblyman. Really was terrific both ways. And I learned what I learned about law from him, but also a lot of the politics I learned from him. But the 3rd district has gone back and forth and back and forth. I call it's sort of like, and I don't mean this in a harsh way, but it's sort of like the relationship the South of America has, with the whole country. I can see that forming. It's not a confederacy, but it's I think an authentic Southern Jersey representative, and the 4th district, of course, is part of Camden and Gloucester. How do those? And then I'm going to get on to a possible obstacle. How do you think those 2 districts look right now for the Republicans?
Look, I think that they have long been a part of the transformation of South Jersey that's been underway for the better part of a decade at this point. And I think a transformation that has only been accelerated with the abolition of the county line, that just further damages the organizing capacity of in the primary campaigns of the parties, but particularly Democratic Party here in New Jersey, because they're the party that's in power and has the money in a lot of these counties. So I mean, you're up against the Norcross machine,
Right.
and all kinds of hijinks. Like gosh, last time we were dealing with
I'm laughing because I remember.
we're dealing with Giuseppe, I think his name was, who can't I think David Wildstein I think he must have called this man like 75 times and maybe got his daughter until he could figure out who he was. Um, there's just there's always like some kind of like chicanery down there in South Jersey, and it's tough, right? Because it's a tough district, and not just because of the demographics. It's expensive because you have the Philadelphia media market there. I know this well because I actually come from the other side of the river. I'm an import to New Jersey, as my husband likes to say. So uh, it's it's an area I grew up knowing well, and it's I think it's one of these working class type areas that's prime for a change. But it also it's just one of these districts, or you in all of these districts, you're countering basically or you're encountering the same scenario, which is uh, the new coalition that Donald Trump put together, right, of working class voters, of minority voters, of male voters to a greater degree, voters without a college education, and versus college educated voters, particularly college educated women, in the suburbs, and particularly the fact that that demographic is energized and definitely motivated by national issues. The new Trump or the second Trump administration, and in this case, so it's a matter of how do we get these low propensity voters, like how do we pick them up and get them motivated? Are they still motivated? Like, did 2024 really wake them up? I mean, the year that was just this like cataclysmic, like, I mean, just a year that I mean, I can't, like, I can only like think of like living through the 60s as some kind of like comparison at this point. So I think that 3 and 4, I mean, I know I've gone a little broader than this, but 3 and 4 represent that that locking of horns, if you will. But look, I think it's a great it is a great opportunity for us. Those are exactly the kind of voters that Jack Ciattarelli is meeting in diners, and going across and just like going into churches, going into neighborhoods where Republicans don't normally go, going into neighborhoods where Mikey Sherrill doesn't even go.
Well,
And
I don't think she would go there in a million years. I mean,
no,
she's not a diners type of candidate, put it that way.
she's not actually. When she said, there's so many instances of this, but like there was some like lightning round, there a couple lightning round questions from either the debates or in a profile stick out to me when they asked her when they asked both candidates what's your favorite shore town, and like Jack is like Surf City hands down. Ciattarelli's been going there for years, like love it, like can like and it's just like his answer just exudes like the whole just like love that you hear from people when they talk about their favorite Jersey Shore town. like
No, but he really means it.
oh, he means it. No, and then
And
there's Mikey Sherrill, and she's like, Asbury Park is great. I mean, it's like she would just
the way you said that,
it was so bad. But then during the debate when they asked about what's your favorite part of New Jersey, and she was like Montclair. Like, I guess
well,
it was
I had my own thing with her because she has a very poor record on Israel and Jewish issues. I said she reminds me of the kind of woman that would go into who is not Jewish. I take non-Jews all the time with me, and some of them know more about Jewish things than I do, but she's the kind of person I'd be nervous about going into a kosher restaurant because I'd be afraid she would order corned beef on white bread with lettuce and tomato and mayonnaise. I mean, she just doesn't have the instinct for the Jewish voter. She just does. And that's why they've launched so many vicious attacks on Jack. I mean, really lies and distortion. So I'm resentful of that. I get very emotional about that. But
We know from the pork roll disaster that she clearly does not have her arms all the way around the delicatessen issue here in New Jersey, which is an important constituency.
absolutely.
regardless of where you come from. So,
Well, I couldn't concur more. I mean, one night I did a podcast with Raz Baraka. I had a good relationship with him because I had written one of the first articles about the possibility of him running for governor way back after he won the mayoral reelection in Newark. So I said, "Well, you got Mikey Sherrill. She's the ultimate white bread candidate." He couldn't stop laughing. I mean, although now he's, well, I won't go any further on where he is now.
Look, he was real. He was like, I mean, again,
I like it very much.
I had the opportunity. I was actually I had the opportunity. I don't know how many people on there knew I was like a Republican. There with my counterpart, Dan Bryan from the New Jersey Globe.
Well, they know Jersey Globe because you do the point counterpart with Dan Bryan.
Right. I wasn't sure though, like if people like I assumed people wouldn't like recognize me, so I was sort of like.
Well, I read you every week, and Dan is
that.
still a friend of mine, even though it's a nasty campaign.
Yeah, no, Dan's great. It's there are more things there are things more important than politics, and
the only thing I hold against him is he roots for the Red Sox.
Yeah, like so, but I'm sitting there and I was front row, and so you could you could feel the heat coming off of some of these candidates. You could feel and this was, as David had pointed out at the time, I mean, the first real Democratic primary debate in quite some time in New Jersey,
Right.
based on years past. So it was just this great opportunity, and he was just on fire. I mean,
that's when he's best. That's when
just,
he's best. He's on fire like that. Yeah.
Yeah, look, I mean, he was saying things that I don't agree with from a policy standpoint, but I mean, it came from a real place. And I think that when he captured as much of the vote share as he did, despite her having, major organizational support, even without the line, I think it,
Right.
I think it definitely was a little bit closer, or not closer, but a little bit more, a little less of a slam dunk than people had thought it might be.
Well, I concur, but let me tell you what has me worried in this election. That is that, and this did not start with this election. It's been this way recently. Even though Morris County in legislative races keeps voting basically for the Republican candidates for the most part, and they've had some real great ones from there. But in statewide elections, maybe you can explain this. I can't explain it. The Republicans have fallen down in statewide and national elections in Morris County. And that's what worries me this time. I think that having as a running mate Jim Gladden is a very big deal. I think
Yeah,
it really is.
I think that was a lot of the wisdom behind the selection
Or Jim
process.
Gannon. Did I say Gladden? I meant Gannon.
It's okay. I think that was a lot of why he was selected, was to help carry over some of those middle of the road voters in Morris County who were willing to elect him countywide, despite the overall trend in the county trending
Right.
bluer and bluer. I think it goes back to the widening gap between what you see as this emerging, call it the Trump coalition, like a populist coalition of white working class voters, not college educated voters, tradesmen, minority voters, right? And then college educated suburban women who are driving, the resistance in every sense of the word, and in a lot of these places. And I think that this is a crowd that for as for it's there's always a give and a take, right? And so for what we have gained in I think new faces and a fresh perspective, which I really value. We've bled some of these some of these traditionally Republican voters, these like the college educated white collar voters, because the emergence of the Trump administration and the policy that just seems to be a real animating issue for them. Although I think I think in 2024 it was more mollified than it had been in 2016. So
Right.
but I think that's the story of Morris County. It's a lot like Burlington County.
It's the migration. It's the migration factor. The people are migrating there, which is another aspect of Mikey that is crazy. And I'll tell you what it is. Because of the Mamdani fear, I have family in New York. They're scared to death. Because of that fear, there's a lot of talk. Like I spent a lot of my life in Brooklyn, in Flatbush and in Borough Park. Jewish Orthodox families are moving out of there. They're moving to Lakewood, for example, which will make Lakewood more Republican than ever. And they're moving out of there. They're moving to places like Morris County. So integrating them into New Jersey and understanding where these people are coming from, that they're fleeing anti-Semitic trends, is very important for the governor to be aware of. Yeah, when I interviewed Mikey Sherrill about Mamdani, she said, basically in so many words, well, that's New York. It's not New Jersey, so people aren't concerned here. Well, they damn well should be concerned. These are going to soon be friends and neighbors of theirs. It's crazy.
You have to specify, though, is that her 14th answer on it or her 16th answer?
It could be her 100th anniversary answer on that. But this is something she's her ignoring the issue is a characteristic of hers that doesn't change.
The only answer that matters to me is the answer that she gave to 6ABC down in Philly when they asked her, or sorry, maybe I think it was NBC 10. They asked her, Zohar Mamdani. This was right after the New York primary.
Right.
Like do you support him? And she was like, yeah, I mean, I guess if he's like the Democratic nominee, like I guess I support him. Yeah, I support him. Like, it was just it was a thoughtless answer, and a very telling one, because not only was she willing to really endorse somebody sight unseen, in some ways, just like, yeah, sure, if he's like the nominee, I support him. I mean, it just speaks to everything that's wrong with our politics, right? Like, if you just like asked me to like, do you endorse this Republican in this town? I would be like, well, like, can you tell me more about him? Like, like, what is he about? It's just this, like, this knee-jerk partisanship that like can't be that can't be broken from. Like, but then like to not be aware of how much fear there was growing throughout the primary, and now, I mean, like the total like outright horror that people are facing in New York with the prospect of this man becoming the mayor of a city that for a lot of us is just a train ride away. I live in Bergen County. This is like it's the kind of thing that makes you want to question going into New York City to do business, to eat, to enjoy, to bring your kids.
Even go to a ball game.
Yeah, no, because you don't. Like what New York City am I going to face there? Is this? I mean, it hasn't been so great in recent years, but like, I mean, are we defunding the police, or are we reimagining the police? If somebody robs me, am I going to get a social worker? Like, I mean, like, what is our fate there, for a city that is so intricately tied with our interest here in New Jersey, for her to not really have an informed opinion of it, and then like once she did have an opinion, not to be like, listen, like, I found out more about this guy, and this guy's nuts. Like, I don't want anything to do with this guy. Like, I mean, like, look, he's my congressman. I disagree with him on a lot, but like Josh Gottheimer was like, no, this guy's bonkers. Like Josh.
Yeah, but I'll tell you something. I just sent a nasty note out to Josh today. I'll tell you why. I've disclosed this to the world. What he said about Jack, I always admired him and Jack sort of as a tandem. They were both great advocates of Israel, and they were both great fighters of anti-Semitism. And for whatever reason, maybe it's future ambition, all the rest, when Josh made the comment about Jash, insinuating that he was an anti-Semite, that was vile. And I sent him, I had been helpful to him in the Democratic primary. I sent him a note saying, you will never have my support for anything again. I laid it right out to them. I'm as subtle as a heart attack.
It's a real, I think you're referencing the video that they've clipped of
the clip video,
where again, I expect nothing less from a campaign that clipped Jack talking about Tennessee's sales tax,
this is
an academic matter, and saying that this was a policy proposal that he had in mind for New Jersey. I mean, I'm sure if you take if the Democrats were watching my interview and wanted to smear me, you could just take certain snippets, like certain words, string them all together, maybe use AI and make me sound like any way you want, right? Because that's just when she did that, I mean, that was just so alarmingly bad behavior, in my opinion, from a political.
But this is their modus operandi.
Yeah,
that's exactly what they're all about.
So, I have no doubt that I mean, because if you listen to the full context of the clip, the guy's actually talking about he's refuting a stereotype that in a community where it would matter, and in a community that maybe should hear about Jack Ciattarelli as a candidate, in terms of bringing people together in our very in our fraught political times. So I mean, there was just a lot of nuance and context to that statement that when clipped very deceptively, just it's a real testament to the real scumbag campaign they're running.
Well, it is, but it was something that they deliberately doctored, that tape, and there's no shame with her. No. Yet she projects this veneer of being above it all, like that her ethics are better. And as we say in Yiddish, it's narishkeit, it's nonsense. It really is. But I have to watch one thing. I'm getting angry every day, every night before I go to bed. And I've never been so infuriated. I know what kind of man Jack Ciattarelli is.
Well, it's amazing because this cheating scandal at the Naval Academy, which they are
I call it Cheatergate.
That does not matter. How dare you question it? And then her excuse was so bad. It was well, I was standing in solidarity with friends that I wouldn't rat out. And it's
standing in solidarity with cheaters. That's really great. That's great ethics for young people.
So what you're telling me is that when put in a moral dilemma, you're gonna choose the side of the people that you're friends with. And I actually, this is something that I raised in my columns, the New Jersey Globe, and on other shows, which is look, the last time we had a guy in the governor's office basically protect his friends was Governor Phil Murphy, when it came out that there was a rampant culture of a rampant abusive culture of women on his campaigns that he shoved under the rug, didn't respond to, even when he was directly appealed to on some matters, and then appointed promoted aides that were implicated in that using taxpayer dollars. It's yeah, that's a guy who stands by his friends too. Was that right? Is that what we should be aspiring to? And I just found that answer to be so unsatisfactory, and
totally self-serving too.
Yeah, and I just don't. It's a very sad. It's a very sad reminder of the campaign that she is running, which is just one of complete self-preservation. Like the ends justify the means. It doesn't matter if you clip the tape at the right moment, where like it could sound a certain way. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you put up something, and this is true down to the assembly campaigns.
Are they being run the same way? Are they becoming a liars club?
I mean, absolutely. Like, because it's almost worse at the assembly level, because they know that in many cases some of these Republican campaigns, which compared to very well funded Democratic campaigns that take public sector money and all kinds of special interest money, that they can basically put up something that is defamatory in many instances, and either
it is defamatory. That's what it is.
Yeah, just assume that that the little guys don't have the power to fight back, right, or don't have the wherewithal. Like if you're just a candidate, if you're just a guy that stands up and says, I'm going to run for office, you're a local business owner, you're someone in the community that put your name down, right? And then Craig Coughlin's super PAC comes swinging at you with something that is just bizarrely untrue and defamatory. Like, do you have the resources to fight it? Probably not. Do you know even where to turn to fight it? Probably not. And if you do, it's going to take like a couple of days for them to have to reverse course in terms of taking down ads or not saying things again, because
it's taken them over a month and they haven't taken down this ad that is an outright lie. She is a liar. I will not hold back on this. And I'll say one thing, though, that I'm happy for the Republicans. They have an excellent attorney in Mark Sheridan. His father, rest his soul, was a dear friend of mine. Was often my mentor, often my advisor. And the first thing that happened when I heard about the killing was to send Mark and his brothers a notice to how much he meant to me. And I know that John Sheridan, wherever he is, and I'm sure it's in heaven. I don't know if I'll ever get there, but but for a man of his ethics and his decency, Mark was someone he was very proud of, and I think he should be proud. I got to tell you, this has been a great show, but I have so much more I'd like to discuss with you. I hope you'll come back. I'll beg you to come back, and we'll provide a babysitter for your kids.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me on. It's been an exciting campaign season, and we'll see what the next couple of weeks bring.
Well, yeah, I'll tell you something. I'm going to need a straitjacket by the time this campaign is over, but I'm glad to be on your side, and keep up the. I'll just close with one historical note. These campaigns now cost so much money. I remember the first campaign that was like that when 1991. John Adler was running against the incumbent Lee Laskin, a Republican, and Lee was the only Republican who was defeated that year. But the night, sixth game of the World Series, that night in Minnesota, when Jack Buck said, "There's a long fly ball by Kirby Puckett, and we'll see you tomorrow," that won that game. But that game, right after that, came on the first Norcross sponsored commercials of how Lee Laskin implying that he was a very honest man, implying that somehow he was a thief and this and that and profiting off. But before that time, commercials in South Jersey, you could run a whole campaign easily for $50,000. Since then, we're dealing with hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I don't envy you having to have to deal with political machines who run ads like that. So God bless you, and keep up the outstanding work. We will have you on again, as Roosevelt used to say, again and again and again. Keep up the good work, and enjoy your children because you deserve it. Thank you very much, Alex Wilkes. I'm sorry. What was the last thing you said?
Oh, I just said thank you so much.
Oh, okay. No, we're the ones to thank. I didn't want to interrupt. Okay,
no,
thank you.
I was just thanking you.
Okay, well, thank you so much, and we look forward to having you on again. And thank you for the insight you bring to New Jersey politics. I'm Alan Steinberg, the voice of dynamic political centrism, at a time when centrism is basically having its back to the wall, but the American public will survive. And thank you, Alex Wilkes. That's the end of our show. 2 more weeks of all this political warfare, but we will survive. That's it for this week. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us for the latest edition of Dynamic Political Centrism. Check back each week for our newest episodes, and you can catch past episodes online via YouTube and Spotify, and please subscribe to our Substack.